Now, we continue our series Inside Kenya. The World Bank says Kenya is growing faster than any other sub-Saharan African nation. But there is one major impediment to the country's continued growth. Tonight, in partnership with the Pulitzer Center on Crisis Reporting, special correspondent Nick Schifrin and producer Zach Fannin examine the reality of Kenyan corruption.
In Kenya, even the world's fastest men can't outrun corruption. The Rift Valley is known as the Valley of Champions. The best marathon runners are born here and train here.
Mind if I join you?
Hilary Kaplimo runs 3 times a day. He's tireless and fast. He averages about 4.5 minutes a mile. It's tough to keep up.
Oh, he's good. And that's slow for him.
After years of training, he finally broke through. He finished 3rd in last year's Nairobi Marathon.
This is the position.
So it says number 3.
Yes.
Because you came in 3rd.
Yes.
He and his wife thought he'd finally fulfilled his dream of running his way out of poverty, but his dream's been denied.
So you got your medal,
Yes.
you got this number 3,
Yes.
you got the jersey, and you got this,
Yes.
but you never got a cent.
I never get that.
On the results website, his name was replaced, and his $3,500 winnings vanished.
So where's the money going?
I think those people, they give to the money.
Athletics Kenya, the race organizers.
Last November, dozens of runners protested at Athletics Kenya. The group has exclusive oversight of all Kenyan athletes. Kenyans hold records in nearly every distance. They say as they run faster, Athletics Kenya steals more. Athletics Kenya did not respond to a half-dozen emails from PBS NewsHour. Hilary suspects there's only one way to get their attention.
When you go to explain, they asking you for something.
They're asking you to give them some money.
The problem extends far beyond athletics. There's a saying here: Kenya is the homeland of the bribe. And in the mostly Muslim neighborhood of Eastleigh, Nairobi, the victims of those bribes point their finger at one perpetrator.
If you look at the police who are meant to protect them, they just arrest them to distort cash.
Abdullahi Mohammed and most of this community are ethnic Somali. He says police come here not to patrol, but to get rich.
You'll see cars from all police stations in Nairobi converging here.
They refer to this neighborhood as what?
ATM machines.
As an ATM machine, because they take so much money.
They take so much money.
Police officers, when promised anonymity, admit they're more focused on keeping the cash than keeping the peace.
How were police officers extorting people in Eastleigh?
The little money that you are paid as salary cannot cater for you and your family. So if somebody gives you some amount somewhere, you have to take the money. And then you forget about work.
Is this corruption being practiced by so many police officers in so many different areas?
Of course. It's right from the junior officer to the highest.
And the problem is when police are for sale, criminals buy their freedom.
A criminal can come, do anything that they want, they go free. You'll pay, and you go free.
And while police let criminals free, they arrest anti-corruption campaigners like 32-year-old Boniface Mwangi.
Why are we being arrested for fighting corruption?
In a country where activist is a dirty word, Mwangi is a fearless, relentless firebrand.
The corruption in this country starts from the presidency to the judiciary to the legislature. So all arms of the government are rotten.
We are here today because the people we elected are thieves.
He is a former journalist whose political activism is often a performance. He covered pigs with fake blood outside Parliament.
Pigs are selfish. And our members of parliament are like pigs. If you steal a lot of money, you go into politics and you buy yourself immunity. You can get away with anything in this country, provided you have the money to buy your way off. Every sector in this country is affected by corruption.
He might be considered over the top, except what he's fighting is so outrageous. Last year, school kids protested when a landowner confiscated their playground to build a parking lot.
They tear gas innocent kids. who wanted to access their playground. Other countries have mafia. In Kenya, the mafia have a country.
The wealth gap here makes the corruption more egregious. According to one study, Kenyans pay on average 16 bribes every month. And in a city where the bus fare is less than $1 a ride, members of parliament here make 188 times the average salary, which is the equivalent of a member of the U.S. Congress making $8.5 million every year.
The moral authority of this regime to do anything about corruption is zero. We've never had that before.
What do people know you as?
The anti-corruption guy.
John Gathongo knows better than anyone how a government becomes corrupt. He was the former government's anti-corruption czar who became a whistleblower. He says today's corruption is getting worse.
The corruption we have now poses an existential risk to Kenya. Before, we stole from ourselves. Now, with the Eurobond, we are mortgaging the futures of our children.
The alleged missing Eurobond funds.
The Eurobond money had been misused.
That we are in the middle of a great con game.
What's missing?
$999 million US dollars.
So $999 million are missing.
I would prefer the word unaccounted for.
Alex Owino used to work at the National Treasury. Last year, he blew the whistle on Eurobond. He calls it a scheme to steal $1 billion.
$1 billion goes missing? I mean, how is that even possible?
It's almost brazen, if you look at it. It's almost like a smash and grab heist.
In 2014, the Kenyan government issued a bond on the Irish Stock Exchange known as a Eurobond, $2.85 billion, invested by JP Morgan Chase and Citibank.
By accessing these external funds, we will spur economic growth and provide more employment opportunities to our people.
Was the pitch a lie?
As it turned out now, the pitch and what exactly transpired are very different.
What transpired were violent protests. Because the Treasury was so empty, the government couldn't issue student loans or pay teachers' salaries.
If we've just borrowed $2 billion, why are we in this problem?
Late last year, the Treasury released documents it called proof the money arrived in Kenya, according to Kenya's top anti-corruption officer, Halake Wako.
All the money that were intended to be brought back to Kenya have been brought back to Kenya.
But Owino says those documents are fake. The invoice numbers seem falsified.
For instance, start at number 25. The second one is going the wrong way. And the third one is number 25, which is the same as the first one.
And another document is redacted, hiding the recipient of the money.
It actually casts doubts immediately on whether they're authentic or not.
How do you investigate the government when it is the government that is allowing you to keep your job and that is funding this organization?
Thank you very much. We are investigating government projects on a daily basis. It is our responsibility to investigate the government.
President Uhuru Kenyatta has denied wrongdoing, and he threatens anyone who accuses him of corruption without proof.
If you make accusations and fail to prove them, you too will also be held accountable.
Thank you very much.
The threats are effective. When average Kenyans stand up to corruption, they often lose everything.
What happens to people in Kenya who try and fight corruption?
You will be targeted, and you will be very unfairly treated.
15 years ago, Daniel Mwirigi investigated fraud at Kenya's Post Bank. He discovered bank officers were stealing Western Union transactions. But when he reported the crime, he says his bosses colluded to frame him with the very crimes he exposed.
The fraudsters were within.
You found these fraudulent transactions.
Yes.
And you investigated them.
I investigated them.
And eventually, they would charge you.
With the same.
With the same exact thing.
Yes.
It took him nearly 2 years to clear his name. By then, he'd lost his job, health, and reputation for good.
My father was alive that time. He has died thinking that I am a thief. My mother was alive. She has died thinking that I'm a thief. There is no point of doing good job in this country. The future generations are doomed.
Kenyans refer to stealing as eating. Today, Kenyans say they watch the rich and powerful get fat, while the people starve. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Nick Schifrin in Nairobi, Kenya.